Welcome to this lecture number 11 on this NPTEL course on fluid mechanics for chemical engineering undergraduate students. In lecture number 10, we were discussing how to visualize fluid flows using various methods while discussing flow kinematics. Okay. After we derived the derivation, or after we derived the expression for substantial derivative of a quantity, we started discussing visualizing flows using various methods, and in that context we discussed the notion of a path line. A path line is essentially obtained by marking a point in fluid with a dye, okay, and assuming that the dye does not diffuse within the time scales of interest to us. Okay, we can locate the trajectory of the dye as the fluid moves. Okay. This is earlier time t equals 0, and in general, because of fluid flow, this fluid particle may move, this dye point which essentially marks a fluid particle may move to another position after a time t. Okay. So, this is path line. This is essentially, the path line is what we call the particle trajectory in the Lagrangian coordinate system. Is a function of the initial position of the particle and time. So, we call this the particle trajectory or particle path in the Lagrangian description of motion in the last lecture. The path line merely says is a way of obtaining that particle path experimentally. Okay. So, how this is done is by either introducing a puff of smoke at a given point in space instantaneously, and you visualize how this puff of smoke or a point of dye in a liquid moves as a function of time. Okay. This gives you the particle path, or what is called the path line. Another useful concept is what is called the streak line. The streak line is obtained by continuously injecting material at a given spatial location. Okay. Let us say you are locating a spatial location by a position x 0. Okay. You are continuously introducing dye, and this, so this will eventually give you a trajectory, okay, and of particles or dye molecules that are introduced continuously at the same point. So, you will essentially get a visualization of at a later time t of particles that have all passed through the same point, but at various instances of time. Okay. That is the streak line. And finally, you have the stream line, which is an inherently Eulerian concept, okay, in the sense that in the Eulerian description, the fluid velocity is given as a function of spatial locations with respect to a fixed coordinate system and time. Okay. And in this regard, you can visualize, suppose you have this vector function. Okay. How do I visualize this? I say that, well, let us at a fixed time, let us fix time t to some value. You can plot the velocity vectors at various points in space. For example, it might look like this. Of course, there are infinitely many points, but you can choose to plot the velocity vectors at some points, and points with higher velocity can be denoted with vectors with greater magnitude and length in some sense, and this will give rise to a description of the velocity vector at each and every point in the fluid at a given instance in time. Now, suppose I take infinitely close points and draw a curve such that at each point the velocity vector is tangential to the curve. Okay. For example, as I have shown here with the red line, such a description is called a streamline. A streamline is locally parallel to the velocity vector at each point in the flow at a given time. Okay. So, that is a streamline. The streamline is therefore an inherently Eulerian idea, while the path line is an inherently Lagrangian concept. Okay. And we also started by discussing elementary example which tells how these three descriptions of motion, of ways of visualizing motion, how they compare and contrast with each other. So, this was obtained in a simple setting where we said that north, south, east and west. Okay. So, we imagine that wind was blowing from west to east, okay, and at some point x, let us say p, smoke is being continuously introduced, okay, at that point. Okay. So, we can imagine how the streamlines are going to look like, and this is a steady flow in the sense that the velocity vectors are constant at each and every point in the fluid. In the Eulerian sense, the flow is steady. So, if you draw the, since it is a constant velocity, if you draw the streamlines, they will all be parallel to each other, okay, and we can plot many streamlines as we wish. Okay. Now, if you look at path line, suppose I introduce a puff of smoke at a point P, at the point P, this puff of smoke will also move in a straight line, okay, and it will also merge with one streamline in the fluid. Okay. And how about the streak line? Well, that will also merge. I will draw this with red line, red continuous line, because as the dye molecules are continuously being introduced, since the flow is steady, each molecule that is introduced at a later time also will follow identically the same path as the path line. So, for a steady flow, all the three modes of visualizing will yield the same result, namely streamlines, streak lines and path lines, and path lines will be identical. However, this is not quite the same for an unsteady flow, as we discussed in a related example, north, south, east, west. Suppose the wind is blowing from west to east from time t equals 0 to t equals t naught, okay, and then northwest to southeast from t equals t naught to current time t. Okay. So, this is an inherently unsteady flow, because you have the wind direction changing abruptly at some time t naught. Okay. So, first we are now going to visualize this flow by streamlines, okay, with which will I will denote by blue, path lines I will denote by black, and streak lines I will denote by red. Okay. So, streamlines, it will be simple, because at a later time. So, all of this we are going to look at time t greater than t 0. So, where the wind has changed its direction from west to east to northwest to southeast. So, streamlines at any later time will all be in the direction northwest to southeast, because streamlines will merely depict the instantaneous location of fluid velocity, and since the fluid velocity for any time t greater than t 0, they are all in the direction northwest to southeast. This is how the streamlines will look. Suppose let us look at path line. Okay. Path line of a particle that was of a puff of smoke, let us say, that was introduced at a point P. Okay. So, this path, this would undergo a motion straight up to time from t equal to 0 to t equals t 0. After that, the wind will start blowing in this direction. So, it will take the route q r. Okay. Streak lines, on the other hand, are formed by particles that are continuously injected from t equal to 0 and later. Okay. So, streak lines are formed by dye molecules, or here in this case of air, you have puffs of smoke that are continuously introduced from t equal to 0 and later. So, the puff of smoke that was introduced at t equal to 0 would be identical to the path line. It will go up from p to q up to t equal to t 0, and from q to r from t 0 to t, the current time. A particle that was introduced later, let us say t equals delta t, would start from p, but it will not reach up to q, because by the time it reaches here, the wind would have changed its direction. So, from here this particle would move and it would reach here. A particle that was introduced at t equals some 2 delta t would go from p to some point here, and then it would reach here. Okay. So, particles that were introduced from t equals to delta t to t equals t 0 would essentially, so particle that was just introduced just before t equals t 0 would have just moved somewhat here, and then it would move here. Okay. Now, a particle that was introduced at t equal to 0 would directly move here, because the wind has changed direction. The particles that were introduced at t greater than t 0 will all move in this direction. Okay. So, the path line will be this red line, whereas the streak line will be the red line, whereas the path line will be the black line, p q r, while the streak line will be given by p q prime r. Okay. So, for unsteady flows, different ways of visualization will give you different types of information, and they do not, all the three lines do not coincide with each other. Okay. So, we can also derive an expression for mathematical expression for streamline. Okay. So, a streamline, as I told you, if you take a streamline, okay, this is a streamline, okay, it is parallel to the local velocity vector. So, if this is the point at which you are looking, the velocity vector is here. Okay. If I take an elemental distance dr at about the same point, okay, so dr will be parallel to v. Okay. That is the definition of streamline. At any given point, if I take an infinitesimal step along the streamline, that displacement vector will be parallel to the velocity vector. Now, if two vectors are parallel, their cross products are 0. So, dr cross vector product, this is vector product or cross product, is 0. If the vector product of two vectors are 0, then I can write the individual vectors as dr as dx I plus dy j. So, imagine putting up a coordinate systems x, y, z, and with unit vector I, j and k. Okay. So, dx I plus dy j plus dz k is the displacement in resolved in the three Cartesian directions. The velocity is u I plus v j plus the vector velocity is written in terms of the three Cartesian components. Okay. So, now the cross product of dr cross v is 0, implies that the determinant found by I, j, k, dx, dy, dz, u, v, w must be 0. This implies that I times w dy minus v dz plus j times dx w minus u dz plus k times u dx v minus u dy is 0. Okay. So, if this is 0, this is a vectorial quantity. If this is 0, individual components along the three directions must be individually 0, because these three are three orthogonal directions. So, w dy minus v dz is 0, which implies w dy is v dz, or dy by v is dz by w. Okay. And dx v minus u dy is 0 implies dx by u is dy by v, which implies that the equation describing a streamline is dx by u is dy by v is equal to dz by w in general in 3 dimensions. Okay. So, this is the equation that describes the streamline. Okay. So, this is the equation governing a streamline. So, if we are given the Eulerian velocity vectors, so I will illustrate this with the help of an example, how to calculate an expression for the equation for a streamline. Suppose I have the u velocity, Eulerian velocity to be some k times x, v velocity to be some minus k times y, and w velocity is 0. Suppose this is the case where k is, let us say, greater than 0, it is a positive constant. Okay. It is a constant, but greater than 0. So, it is a 2 dimensional flow in the sense that w is 0. So, we have to worry only about dx by u is v. Okay. Dx by u is nothing but dx by kx is dy by v is minus ky, k will cancel. So, dx by x is minus dy by y. Okay. So, if I integrate both sides, so I get log x, okay, is equal to minus log y plus some constant c. So, if I exponentiate, let us call it c prime, if I exponentiate both sides, I get e to the log x is e to the minus log y plus c prime. Okay. E to the log x is natural log of x is simply x. Okay. E to the product of two quantities is e to the minus log y times e to the c prime. Okay. So, e to the minus log y is simply, okay, e to the log minus log y can be written as e to the log y to the minus 1 times e to the c prime. Okay. So, this is simply y to the minus 1, and e to the c prime is another constant which I call c, this is y to the minus 1. So, x is c by y or x y is a constant. So, if I have this velocity profile, u is k x and v is minus k y, okay, then the equation describing the streamlines is given by x y is a constant. So, if you understand what this means, if I plot in x y coordinates, I will get a hyperbolic kind of behavior. Okay. Okay. So, of course, we are not worried about how this flow is going to happen here. Okay. In the context of kinematics, we are simply trying to understand how to describe flows and motion. Okay. So, in general, so we have streamlines, streak lines and path lines. So, streamlines and all the three descriptions will merge if the flow is steady, but if the flow is not steady, then all the three descriptions will be different from each other, and you will have to figure out, it is not easy to figure out one from the other. Okay. And we should also remember that the path line is an inherently Lagrangian concept, while the streamline is inherently an Eulerian concept. Okay. So, this sort of sets the ground for analyzing fluid flows, okay, because we are now discussed the elementary principles of kinematics. Now, I am going to go to another major topic, how to analyze fluid motion. Methods of analysis. Okay. So, in solid mechanics, in elementary mechanics of solids of point particles and such. Okay. We simply apply Newton's second law. Okay. So, which simply says that rate of change of momentum m dv dt is sum of all the external forces acting on a body, sum of all forces acting on a body. Okay. A body is essentially an identifiable piece of matter in mechanics. That is, we can identify a set of points and we can always make sure that the same set of points will constitute the body, piece of matter in mechanics. Okay. So, the way in which problems are done is we do a free body diagram in mechanics, identify a body, let us say you have a block of wood or something solid block, you identify the forces, this is our body, you may identify forces such as gravitational force and then maybe some other tangential force and so on, and then we will try to compute the motion by identifying, by isolating the body and asking the question as to what are the forces, and once you figure out what are the forces, you can plug in here and then you can compute the velocities and how they change with time with the help of an initial condition. But the key in all of this is Newton's second law, which is the fundamental law for motion of material, okay, that we have in classical physics, is applicable to an identifiable, is only applicable identifiable piece of matter or a specific object, specific body of matter. Okay. So, whereas in fluid mechanics we been mentioning that it is not feasible for us to identify the same set of point, a same point or same set of points, because of the fact that in fluid flows we are not generally interested in the motion of a given point or given set of points. Okay. So, there is a fundamental sort of dichotomy here, that while Newton's second law as we know in mechanics is applicable to a specific body, okay, in fluid mechanics we rarely actually worry about the motion of a specific set of points in a fluid. Rather, we are interested, as I have been mentioning the last couple of lectures, we are interested in what is the force on a surface, and we are not really worried about which particular fluid particle or which set of particles are going to exert that force. Okay. But in principle, at least in fluid flows also we can identify suppose you have a fluid flow like this. Okay. These are the streamlines. In principle, we can identify a set of points by imagining putting a blob of dye, not a point of dye, but a colored blob of a drop of dye, let us say, of some shape at initial time, and if the dye molecules do not diffuse much in the time scales of interest to us in the flow, then this particular piece of fluid that is being identified by a blob of dye is a specific body. Okay. It's a material body or material volume. Okay. A material volume in fluid mechanics contains the same set of material points or fluid particles. Okay. So, earlier in kinematics we discussed the notion of a single fluid particle which was identified by its initial location. A material volume is merely a collection of various such fluid particles, and we can look at their motion, okay, collectively together. As the fluid flows, this material volume will move, stretch, deform and so forth. Okay. Now, it is in principle possible to do this, or in practice this can be idealized by imagining that you put a blob of dye, colored dye, in a fluid like water, and assume that the dye molecules do not diffuse much within the time scales of interest to us in the flow. Okay. So, this is at time t equal to 0, let us say. At a later time, this blob of fluid may okay. So, this blob of fluid which was like this here may deform, stretch, move in space and so on. So, this is after a time t, okay, after some time t, after a time t, okay, then this particle may, this material volume, okay, which we imagine contains the same set of material points, will stretch, deform and move. Okay. So, this is an example of an identifiable piece of matter in a fluid flow. Okay. So, this is one way in which you can identify a same set of fluid particles or material particles. Such a description is called control mass or the system approach. A control mass contains, by definition, is defined as a mass that contains the same set of fluid particles, okay, at all times. This is called control mass or system, or sometimes it is referred to as material volume. Okay. Now, examples of control mass are the following. How to realize this in a real experiment? Well, imagine you have a piston cylinder assembly, that is common in thermodynamics. Okay. So, imagine you have a mass. Okay. Now, this dotted line inside contains gas, okay, and as you increase the weight, as you compress this gas, okay, this physical volume will shrink, but the material volume will have the same set of gas molecules or fluid particles. Okay. So, this is an example of a control mass. Okay. It has the same material. Another example is that of a balloon which is filled with gas, and you can stretch, deform the balloon by applying forces, but this will have the same set of material points, although they may be moving about within that particular volume, but they will all be present within the same enclosure. Okay. So, it contains, the control mass always contains the same set of fluid particles or material particles. Okay. Okay. But in fluid mechanics, it is not feasible to do it. This is always good in thermodynamics of closed systems, because the system is completely closed in the sense that there is no entry or exit of mass into the system, okay, into the area of interest. Okay. But in fluid mechanics, that is not the case, because we are usually dealing with open systems like pipe, where fluid enters, leaves the pipe and so on. So, it is not feasible to follow a single point or the same set of points as the fluid is moving in a device such as a pipe or a pump or anything that we have. Okay. So, it is not easy for us to follow a specific body in fluid mechanics. Okay. So, what is normally done in fluid mechanics is to use what is called the control volume approach. The control volume is a fixed location, fixed region in space of interest to us. Okay. So, for example, you may have, okay, a manifold like this, a flow manifold like this. So, the control volume we may choose to be something like this. It is completely imaginary, it just aids our problem solving. We may just choose it so that it is present just inside the surface, okay, of the conduit of this Y shape of this T shaped conduit. Okay. So, there are surfaces where fluid comes in and there are surfaces where fluid leaves. Okay. These are imaginary surfaces, these are called control surfaces. Okay. They need not be always real in the sense of a real surface that is separating the inside and outside of the control volume. Sometimes they can be simply imaginary. For example, this is a physical wall where fluid cannot enter or leave, whereas this is a control surface where fluid can enter or leave. It's only in our mind that there is a surface, because this is the region that we have chosen to work with in the control volume. Okay. So, the control volume is very suited for problems in fluid mechanics, for analyzing problems in fluid mechanics, because of the fact that usually we have open systems, in the sense that fluid will come in and go out of a given device or a given pipe and so on. So, it is not possible for us to follow the same set of points. So, therefore, we have to isolate a region of interest, which is called the control volume, and the boundaries of the region is called control surface, but the boundaries can be real boundaries such as walls of a tube, or imaginary boundaries wherein you just draw the boundary so as to demarcate the region of interest control volume with the outside, and fluid can enter or leave the control volume by virtue of the control surfaces, which are not true surfaces that bound the fluid. Okay. But this control volume is normally denoted by the shorthand form CV. Okay. CV approach has its own disadvantages, because the Newton's second law is not applicable to a CV, directly applicable to a CV, because a CV is not an identifiable piece of matter. So, the Newton's second law is not directly applicable to the CV. Okay. So, therefore, we need to find a way to relate quantities such as acceleration of mass present in the CV, okay, to quantities that are present in the CV. Okay. So, we need to find a way to relate rate of changes in the CV to rate of changes of the system, because the system is an identifiable piece of matter, it is a collection of material points, while a CV is not. Okay. So, this is achieved by what is called the Reynolds transport theorem. Reynolds transport theorem. The Reynolds transport theorem is a tool to convert derivatives, time derivatives of system in terms of time derivatives of the variables that are present in the CV. This is not very unlike the conversion of Eulerian time derivative to the Lagrangian time derivative by virtue of the substantial derivative. So, this is very similar to that, only that here we are not talking about a single point in space or a single material point, but here we are considering a macroscopic volume called the control volume, and we would like to be able to derive a result which relates the rate of change of various quantities related to the control volume, such as mass present in the control volume, or momentum present in the control volume, or energy present in the control volume, in terms of the variables that are represented in terms of the system. Okay. So, let us just start the derivation, and we will write down the formula for a control volume as we go along. Okay. Suppose let n, capital N, be the total amount of mass or momentum or energy present in the system. Okay. We imagine that the system and the CV coincide at a given time. Okay. The system and CV coincide at a given time, okay. But at a later time, while the CV remains the same, the system would have moved, okay, the blue thing is a system whereas the red thing is a CV. Suppose at a given instant of time we identify all the fluid particles that are present in the CV as our system. These set of points will not be staying put in the CV, because if the fluid is in general moving, these points will move away. So, this blue line is no longer occupying where the red line was at time t equal to t0. At a later time t0 plus delta t, okay, this is time t equals t0. At a later time the blue lines and red lines will separate, because the fluid chunk of molecules, the chunk of fluid particles have moved elsewhere. So, the Reynolds transport theorem is a tool to that enables us to relate the time derivatives of an identifiable piece of matter, which is what we call the system, with the properties that are relevant, or the properties that relate to a CV, which is a fixed region in space. This is not very unlike the notion of a substantial derivative, wherein we used the Eulerian information, which relates to various fixed points in space, to find the instantaneous rate of change of a property like velocity or temperature of a fluid particle, which happens to be at a given spatial location as we follow the particle. Here we are merely generalizing that notion not to just one fluid particle, but to a collection of identifiable piece of fluid particles called a system. So, if you follow the system, you are following a same set of a large collection of identifiable fluid particles, and as the fluid flows, this fluid particles, the collection of fluid particles will keep moving, they will deform, stretch and so on, and you are following the same set of particles. This is the control mass or the system approach, whereas the control volume is a fixed region in space, okay. And for example, you may have a section of a pipe in which we are interested in calculating the force exerted by the fluid on the solid surface, the drag force, and in that case we will just isolate a region of interest, that namely a section of the pipe or a pump or a compressor and so on, and we will try to analyze that particular region of interest to us. Okay. But nonetheless, even though the control volume approach is more suitable in practical applications of fluid flow problems, okay, we still need to be able to relate the rate of change of a quantity like velocity as you follow the same set of particles, because physical laws such as Newton's second law, they are not applied to a fixed region in space, rather they are applied to an identifiable piece of matter, namely the control mass. So, we need a tool to be which translates the information from the control volume approach to the control mass approach, and that is basically the Reynolds transport theorem. Okay. So, once we have the Reynolds transport theorem, which we are going to derive now, then we will be able to very easily write all the rates of change of changes of quantities such as mass of a fluid or momentum present in a fluid or energy of the fluid that corresponds to a system or an identifiable piece of matter with the variables that correspond to a CV, which is a fixed region in space. Okay. So, in order to help visualizing, you imagine that the system is essentially denoted by the blue color. Okay. So, system or control mass is denoted by blue color, while the control volume is denoted by red color. Okay. Imagine that the system and the control mass, both the blue color and red color regions, they coincide at time t equal to 0. Okay. That is what I have shown here to the best I can. Of course, all these are identically overlapping, both the blue curve and the red curve at some time t equal to t0. At a later time, okay, t equals t0 plus delta t, the CV is a fixed region in space with respect to a coordinate system x, y and z. The CV will remain the same, okay, but the system, the blue line would have moved elsewhere because the fluid is continuously moving. So, if you mark a set of fluid particles by a blob of dye, that will in general not be located in the same spatial region, because as the fluid flows, it will stretch that blob of dye and it will deform, it will rotate, it will translate and so on. So, in general this blob of dye, which is what I call a control mass, would have moved elsewhere to some other location immediately after at a time delta t. Okay. So, to derive the Reynolds transport theorem, let us call a quantity eta is the amount of an extensive quantity such as mass, momentum and energy of the fluid and energy of the fluid that is present in the control mass, okay, per unit volume, okay, sorry, per unit mass. Okay. So, N is m for mass, N is mv for momentum, N is half mv squared for energy. Okay. So, for kinetic energy of the fluid. Okay. So, eta is per unit mass N divided by m. Okay. So, eta becomes 1 for mass. So, eta becomes v for momentum, because mv is the momentum, per unit mass is simply v, and eta becomes half v squared for kinetic energy of the microscopic kinetic energy of the fluid. Okay. So, now we are interested in the quantity that is present in the system, the total amount of a quantity such as mass, momentum or energy that is present in the system. So, this is integral over volume of eta rho dV. I am going to use V with a which is struck like this, which is crossed like this, okay, for volume, because V is normally used for velocity. So, in order to distinguish volume from velocity, we will use a V with a cross line like this for volume and just mere V for velocity. Okay. So, now this is the total amount of, let us say, mass, momentum or energy that is present in the system. Now, what we are interested in obtaining is the rate of change of the total amount of a quantity such as mass, momentum or energy is present in the system. It is nothing but, by fundamental definition, limit delta t going to 0, okay, n system at time t 0 plus delta t minus n system at times t 0 divided by delta t. Now, we have to take help of the figure. Let me just do that. In this figure, okay, we can identify 3 regions. Region 1, which is essentially this region, which is vacated by the system at a later time t 0 plus delta t. So, this is the CV, the portion that is present in the CV where the system has vacated, that is the fluid particles have left this region at a later time t 0 plus delta t. Region 2 is the common region between system and CV at a later time, and region 3 is the new set of volume that has been created by the material particles that are moving. Okay. So, we will call these 3 regions 1, 2, 3 as shown in this figure. Okay. So, by fundamental definition, so the rate of change of a quantity such as mass, momentum or energy present in the system is d n system by dt is as limit delta t goes to 0, n system at t 0 plus delta t minus n system at t 0 divided by delta t. Okay. So, n system at time t 0 plus delta t, okay, is nothing but, from the figure, okay, at time t 0 plus delta t is nothing but n 2 okay, plus n 3. Okay, in this example, n system is therefore limit delta t going to 0. N system at T 0 plus delta t is nothing but n 2 plus n 3 at T 0 plus delta t. Okay. This is nothing but this is n system at T 0 delta t is n 2 plus n 3 n system at T 0 plus delta t, n 2 is nothing but n C v minus n 1 plus n 3 at T 0 plus delta t. Okay. To do this, to understand this or appreciate this better, we look at the figure. So, n 2, which is just this region, is nothing but n 2 n system at time T 0 plus delta t, which is the blue line, is nothing but n 2 which is hatched by black lines and n 3 which is hatched by violet lines. Okay. So, n system at time T 0 plus delta t is nothing but n C v, and n 2 is nothing but n C v minus n 1. Okay. So, n C v minus n 1. So, let me just go here, n 2 is nothing but n C v, which is a red, minus n 1, which is minus n 1 is this yellow shaded region. So, if you subtract this, you will get n 2 at time T 0 plus delta t. Okay. So, if you subtract n C v, which is total red line, from this you will get n 2. So, if you subtract that, you will get n 2 at time T 0 plus delta t, because that is n C v minus n 1. Okay, n 1 is the region that was vacated by the system. So, this will completely give us n system at time T 0 plus delta t. Okay. And n system at time t equals T 0 is simply n C v at time T 0, since the system and C v collapse or they are identical or coincide at the time T 0. Okay. So, the rate of change of the quantity n in the system with respect to time is nothing but limit delta t going to 0 n C v minus n 1 plus n 3 T 0 plus delta t minus n C v T 0 divided by delta t. Okay. So, this is nothing but limit delta t going to 0, okay, n C v T 0 plus delta t minus n C v T 0 divided by delta t plus limit delta t going to 0, okay, n 3 T 0 plus delta t divided by delta t plus limit delta t goes to 0, or rather minus n 1, okay, at T 0 plus delta t divided by delta t. Okay. So, this is nothing but the various terms that are present in this equation. So, n C v at T 0 plus delta t minus n C v at T 0, this is the first term, minus n 3, then plus n 3 minus n 1. Okay. These are the various terms that are expanded out from the basic definition of the rate of change of a property that is present in a system. Okay. So, what are the various terms? What is this term? N C v at T 0 plus delta t minus n C v at T 0 divided by delta t. This is nothing but the normal partial derivative of integral, okay, C v eta rho d v. Okay. So, you could also, well, we will just keep it like this. So, this is the usual partial derivative of n C v okay, n Cv dV. Okay. This is the normal partial derivative, the rate of change with respect to time of the amount that is present in the Cv of the quantity n, which could be mass, momentum or energy. Okay. So, the second term and the third term, which is okay. So, this is n2 okay. So, the first term is simple, the second term and third term need some work. Okay. So, in order to do that, okay, we will take we will consider term 2, which is this term. Okay. This is the term 2, okay, and while this is term 3. Okay. So, how do we calculate limit n 3 t 0 plus delta t divided by delta t as delta t going to 0? Okay. How are we going to calculate this? Okay. This can be calculated by realizing that the material volume is moving by virtue of the velocity in the of the fluid that was residing at time t equal to t 0 within the Cv. Okay. If you look at a subdomain, okay, in the region where, okay, if you look at, let us just go back to this diagram. Okay. If you look at any place here, okay, this place has moved here by virtue of the normal motion of the fluid is present inside, okay, and that leads to the motion of this entire object, and therefore, that leads to, okay, a relation between these two surfaces. Okay. Now, let us imagine that on the surface, on such a surface, this is the control surface, okay, a patch on the control surface in region 3, and this control surface, if there is a particular velocity, that is going to take such a control surface to some other location. Okay. Right. So, this is the surface, this is a patch on the surface, of the control volume, control mass, okay, or control volume. So, within this patch, okay, this patch is denoted by a vector unit outward normal, this is inside, this is outside, dA, and in general the fluid velocity on that patch will not be the same as same direction as dA, in fact it will be at a direction theta. Okay. So, dN3 at t 0 plus delta t is nothing but, okay, why is this volume, why is this surface moving? By virtue of the velocity. So, the change in the quantity such as mass, momentum of energy, because of the fact that this surface has moved from here to here, is nothing but eta rho dV at time t 0 plus delta t, okay, where dV is the volume of the cylindrical element, of this cylindrical element. Okay. That is the volume of the cylindrical element. So, what is dV? dV is nothing but V dot dA times delta t, okay, because we are looking at a time delta t. So, this must be proportional to delta t, and it must also be proportional to V dot dA. Okay. So, it is V dot dA times delta t that gives rise to the change, that volume that is traversed by this surface as it left the control volume, and then it has reached the new surface, okay, at a later time. Okay. So, that volume is V dot dA times delta t. So, for dN3 at T 0 plus delta t is nothing but eta rho dV, okay, is nothing but eta rho V dot dA times delta t. Okay. So, if you want for the entire region, we can integrate. Okay. So, limit delta t tending to 0 n 3 divided by delta t is nothing but limit delta t going to 0 integral over the entire control surface 3 of d n 3 T 0 plus delta t 1 over delta t. Okay. So, this is nothing but limit delta t going to 0, okay, integral 1 over delta t rho V dot dA delta t divided by, okay, you already have the delta t here. Okay. So, this is limit delta t going to 0 rho V dot dA times delta t divided by delta t. So, delta t will cancel to give integral. So, limit delta t going to 0 n 3 T 0 plus delta t divided by delta t is nothing but integral eta rho V dot dA over the control surface at 3. We will stop at this point and we will continue in the next lecture.